What's up, movie lovers? I'm Mike, and this is Gotta Love Them Movies. 13 years later, and we finally get a sequel to Finding Nemo. It was good. It was really good. Finding Dory. I liked it. It was a fun movie. It was a good family adventure for the whole family, where you can adventure with your family. It is a little odd that it's 13... I mean, like, the movie itself does not take place 13 years later, but it's kind of weird that it took 13 years to get a sequel. But it's also kind of cool. Director Andrew Stanton. I think it's Stanton. I find it really interesting. The reason that he wanted to do a sequel to Finding Dory wasn't just, hey, Finding Nemo was incredible, let's do a sequel. But it really bothered him that, Finding Nemo wrapped up in its own little ending and everybody was happy and hugs and cuddles and everything. But he didn't really feel that Dory had kind of like she never had her happily ever after, And he said in the past 13 years since they did Finding Nemo, it really bothered him. So that's why he was like, no, we need to figure out Dory's story. So let's break it down. Acting. Ed O'Neill was in the movie. Had no idea Ed O'Neill was in the movie. It was kind of weird. Just Al Bundy just popping up out of nowhere. Hey, what's going on, buddy? A lot of other voice actors that I recognized. Kate McKinnon, Bill Hader popped up. There were a few times that Albert Brooks, you could kind of tell he was getting a little tired in his voice performance. And the same thing with Ellen DeGeneres. They were just kind of going through the motions a little bit. I think it seemed as though they were finding it difficult to find their motivation. They were finding it difficult to find their motivation in Finding Nemo sequel, Finding Dory. That being said, they did a fine performance. I mean, everything was fine. Same thing with the animation. I think the animators did a fantastic job. I mean, they're fish floating in the sea, and they have to animate the expressions and give emotion. So, yeah. All that being said, I'm giving acting an overall score of 12 out of 20. Directing. This is a beautiful movie. I mean, Finding Nemo was beautiful. So is Finding Dory. It's just pretty to look at. It's fun. It's visually appealing. The shots that they create, to have those really heavy emotional gravitas moments, they're just beautiful. The storytelling was clear. It was concise, and it was well told. So I'm giving directing an overall score of 18 out of 20. Script. Let's go to the script. Like I kind of touched on before, the script did a lot of the similar... It had the same beats as Finding Nemo, which isn't a bad thing. That being said, it was a little rushed. Okay, so for those of you who aren't familiar with Story Spine, it's a very concise method of storytelling. And it goes a little something like this. Once upon a time, there was... fill in the blank. And every single day, until one day, and then, until, and ever since that day... And that's Story Spine. And every single Pixar film follows this format. Every single one. Fill in the blank. Once upon a time, there was a fish. And every single day, that fish and his father would swim around their little ocean pond. Until one day, the baby fish got lost from the father fish. And so the father fish... went out looking for his son And then he met a group of sea turtles, and then they met a fish named Dory, and then they met some sharks, and then they eventually got to Australia, and then they found themselves in a fish tank, and then they finally make it back home. You see how story spine works. It's very clear, it's very concise, and it's a very excellent method of storytelling. And that's exactly what Finding Dory does. It follows a story spine verbatim. And that's great. There weren't a lot of surprises. Everything that happened, I was like, oh, yeah, okay, I can see that. Oh, and that's happening. Yep, cool. So it was a little rushed. It was, I mean, kind of formulaic to the point where you can, I mean, you weren't really surprised by anything. In that regard, I'm going to give the script writing a 12 out of 20. Fun! Was this movie fun? Yeah, it was fun. It's visually beautiful. You can just sit down and watch it all day. Like I said, there were a few things that were a little, not predictable, but it wasn't as surprising as you would hope. Yeah, so overall fun. I'm sticking with 12 out of 20. It wasn't phenomenal, but it was a really well told story. Overall takeaway. What was the message of this movie? I'm not going to spoil anything for you if you haven't seen it already. I think what Finding Nemo did was, you know, the whole idea of losing your child. Finding Dory kind of flip-flops that and losing your parent. Whereas I think more adults connected with Finding Nemo. I think more children are going to connect with Finding Dory. And I was a child growing up, like that was one of my biggest fears. I have a memory. I was in Kmart. Mom and Dad were on this side of the aisle. I was around on the other side of the aisle. And I was terrified because I thought I'd lost Mom and Dad in Kmart. Never to be seen again. Lo and behold, they were just right there. So I think children are going to have a stronger connection with this film. I will say one of the things that Pixar and Disney, but specifically Pixar, does very well is they take very edgy themes. It is kind of an edgy theme to think that this is a children's movie, and the overall story is that I lost Mom and Dad, or going back to the original, I lost my child. My child is missing. I lost my parents. That's a terribly, terribly sickening feeling. I'm not a parent. I have a cat, so I can only imagine what it would be like if I found out that my cat left. But exacerbate that by 50,000, and that's what it would be like as a parent or a child, you know, to lose your child, to lose your parent. And so you have to give kudos and props to Pixar for, you know, delving deep into these things. And some of the terminology that they use in a children's movie is very surprising. I'm not going to give away any of the terminology, but there's key words that you don't say in a children's movie because of the words hold a certain. I'm not talking about swearing. They don't use any curse words. That's not what I'm talking about. There are words that are definitively harsher, side of life kind of words. Words that describe things that are difficult subjects to talk to children about. And Pixar isn't really afraid to use some of these larger terms that can be scary and terrifying, especially if a child doesn't fully understand what this is. I think it's good to open up those lines of communication. In that regard, I have to give the overall takeaway a 15 out of 20. Which, when we add it all up, we have a total score of 69 out of 100. So, by the gotta love that movie scale, this gets a 3.45.
I'll take the camels.
I don't need camels.
But indeed.
No camels.
So guys, I want to know what you thought of Finding Dory. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you somewhere in between? Let me know in the comment section below. Also, follow me on Twitter at GLT Movies. Also, if you like this video, click like. If you really like this video, click subscribe. If you really, really like this video, click share. Because Dory wants you to click share. I mean, I want you to click share, but Dory really wants you to click share. Sigourney Weaver really wants you to click share. Alright, movie lovers, I'm out of here.